Welcome everyone to the Adversity to Advantage podcast. Today, all the way from Edinburgh, we've got Gary Young. We met a couple months ago, I guess, when I came up to Edinburgh to do a talk. I did a keynote at a big sort of an insurance company, a conference, and Gary was there in the back and we got to chat a little bit, and then we've chatted since then because he's in the wellbeing space. So you're the founder of the Mindful Enterprise. Have I got that right?
That's right. Yep, you've got it right.
Yeah, so welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about the Mindful Enterprise and just what are you passionate about in life and work?
Okay, so the Mindful Enterprise was, it is a social enterprise that I founded back in 2016 it was, but we didn't start officially trading until 2017. So we've been trading for just over 2 years, and we're very much focused on or passionate about mindfulness as a tool for well-being and personal growth, and I guess the idea behind the business is that we feel that if we can try and integrate more of a kind of mindful culture across the education sphere, across other parts of society, and also into the workplace, then we can help culturally for society to evolve in the most positive way. And this is something from my own personal experience that has had a very, very transformative impact. So really what we want to do is make this make the training that we do more relevant, more accessible, and more beneficial to as many people as we can, including children, young people and adults.
Yeah, and I guess I love that about you. I can always recognize the people who do this kind of work because it's like personally impacted them in a big way. I can always tell, like from across the room, I'm like, oh, they feel the stuff, right? It's not just like, oh, this is a great business plan. It's like you've been through stuff and you're like, this has saved me or helped me in some way. And like the passion that comes with is just so different than somebody going, oh, mindfulness is the new trend and we should be present and that sort of thing. There's something really interesting about this mindfulness thing, and I'm just going off on a little tangent because I've just been away. So I went to Switzerland and I went hiking and I went kayaking. Like I was just in nature, which I'm ashamed to say I haven't done in a really, really, really long time, like taking a whole week to just be in the moment. And I was with a friend we just kayaked for 10 miles and I was looking over this lake, right? And I was going, I listened to all this like productivity hacking and effectiveness and all these podcasts and people saying, gratitude lists and all these like things we need to do in order to be in the moment. And I was looking across this lake going, when you're out here, like it's not even effort to just be like, I am so grateful for nature or for being, like all these things. It just came easy. I mean, do you think we sometimes push too hard to like do the mindfulness? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people find it quite challenging at first because of the way the mind's been conditioned, and because of how identified we are with our thoughts and intellectualizing, analyzing, all that kind of stuff. And it really prevents people from just allowing themselves to be and trusting that when we're in that place, when we are just in this being state and very present, that we can still communicate and find the right language that we want to find when we're speaking to people. We can still find answers to questions that we may have. We can still find all that stuff from the present moment. But a lot of people think that, I have to start thinking about this to get the answer. And if I'm in the present moment, I'm not actually achieving anything. I'm not doing anything. Well, yes, that's partly true, that you're actually spending you're spending time in a more being state. Therefore, what you're doing is you're stepping out of a doing mode, which is something that we've kind of across society have lost the wisdom of doing, because we think we have to keep going and doing and doing and doing. And if we aren't doing, it's habit. If we aren't doing, endlessly doing, then we're not achieving. And
Not
this,
only that, not only are we not achieving, we're afraid that we're falling behind. There's
yeah,
this sort of competitive edge that you think everyone is achieving, right? And like,
yeah,
I don't, like when I stop, I just sometimes think, shit, I'm going backwards,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
And
yeah, I can relate.
it's the challenge of flipping into. So when I spent a week, it probably took me 3 days to fully like settle in.
Unwind, yeah.
Yeah. And when you're doing like a 5 minute or a 10 minute, it's actually hard. But on the fourth day, I went hiking up on the mountain. It was my last day. And my friend was like, let's just sit on the edge of the sort of cliff, the hill, and meditate. And we
Mm,
just sat there with the wind and the
mm,
sky and like the
mm,
view, and
yeah,
closed our eyes and sat there maybe for 10 minutes. And it was the most invigorating 10 minutes, you know, alongside this whole thing. And
yeah.
because I'd allowed myself to go into the being, and I felt the value of it, and I was out
Mm.
away from my fucking computer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. We've become so disconnected from our internal environment that we're now, you know, so connected in with technology and everything in our exterior world that this is where I think a lot of people are becoming unwell, because we are kind of constantly searching and acquiring and accumulating and all that kind of stuff. It's all stuff. It's all material things, and we're doing that at the expense of truly getting to know ourselves on the inside, and that's causing people to be confused, lack of direction, lack of really knowing who they are and what they're, you know, where, you know, what they're really, their true purpose is, to try and, you know, wake up every morning and feel that they're really adding value to the world. But I can so relate to what you've said there about, you know, just this perception that we have that if we're not constantly on the treadmill achieving, that we're slipping back, we're falling behind. But I genuinely feel that sometimes we get moments where we absolutely need to, we become so suffocated by everything that we're doing that we have no space to actually see the things that we should be doing, and the things that are going to take us on a direction that is really going to be the one that really lights us up. And a lot of people deny themselves that because they just have to think they have to just keep going. And so we have to be quite firm with ourselves, I think, and disciplined to say, I have to allow myself this time to be in peace, to be in stillness, to just be okay, to spend even a weekend not thinking about work, not engaging in anything related to it, and just taking myself away and doing nothing. Because the wisdom that we get from doing nothing is you know, we can't put a price on that.
I'm so glad we're speaking this week, because
Yeah.
2 weeks ago I would have been like, but we
Mm,
gotta, you know, we've got to push it. But in this week, I learned so much. You're talking about wisdom, the wisdom that comes from silence and sitting with.
mm,
And I would tell myself, well, some people are good at it. Gary's good at it. But for me, sitting for like longer than 3 to 5 minutes just makes me deeply uncomfortable, and my brain is busy. So obviously it's not right for me, right?
yeah,
But there was something in the walking meditation, in the movement meditation, and that there's different ways of doing mindfulness. It
absolutely.
doesn't just have to be like at your desk or your sofa where you're surrounded by the stuff that can
Mm,
distract you, right? It can
yeah,
be about going into nature. And anyway, Gary, I'm
yeah.
so happy we're having this conversation.
Yeah, good timing, it sounds. Yeah, you're right. There's so many different ways that we can do it and we can practice it. And one of the really big advantages of it is we talk about trying to have our full energy to be able to do all the things that we want to do. You know, we want to be firing every day. And when we're engaging in thought activity in the mind, we are sending our energy into all those thoughts. Thought is pure energy, so we are feeding that, and we're giving it more power to keep, you know, coming back day after day after day. And this is again where people get into difficulty with their mental health, because they have become so identified with their thoughts. They are sending energy into those every day. They've maybe got some emotional stuff that's going on as well, so they're sending a lot of their energy into the emotional stuff that's going on, trying to keep all all the kind of knowns, the material knowns in their lives under control, and that takes a lot of time and energy to do that. You know, the kids, the house, the job, the relationships we have with people, you know, friends and partners and all that stuff is, we've got emotional connections to all of that stuff. And when things are kind of just like, you know, little things are kind of maybe firing up every now and again, and maybe there's 2, 3, 4 of our spinning plates that are starting to fall over, we are draining our body of energy. So how we change that through a more mindful approach is we start to become more aware of thoughts, of feelings, and what's going on in our environment, and we be able to learn how to stay present with that, and only go and start identifying with thought activity that's the important stuff, the things that are actually really beneficial. And when we're not up there using our imagination or whatever it is we might be using, we return to the present moment. And when we're there, we're conserving our energy. So the energy is being protected, and we've got our optimal supply of energy when we're in that space, when we're in the present moment. And when we're there, we're not bothered and worried about all the stresses of life and all the problems that we've got in our life and all the kind of demands that we need to service. So it's really important that we dip back into the present moment as often as we possibly can, for that reason, because it is the key to it's the key to our optimal state of health, wellness, productivity, because we need to slow down to allow ourselves to speed back up. Constantly on the treadmill, going, eventually we'll reach a point where we are fatigued and we're worn out. And that's where,
fatigued or worn out. I love that you said mental health issues, but also physical health issues, right? So all of this stuff starts creeping in, the back pain, the neck pain, the stress headache, all these sorts of things. And then we start going to our doctor, getting medication, which doesn't necessarily help the situation.
No,
now,
it doesn't.
Gary, I know that we could go into the intricacies of mindfulness for this whole conversation, but I know that you weren't just born this baby who was like, let's be mindful, right? You had to grow into.
Very true.
Actually, as a baby, you probably are mindful. Everyone.
We are.
Basic, right?
We're just a bundle of love, very mindful when we start, and then we get, we get twisted through through all the shit that life throws at us.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into some of the shit that life threw at you, Gary. What was your childhood like? Give us just a little bit of context. Were your parents mindful? Did you feel like, what was the environment like for you?
My parents were wonderful people, just trying to navigate their own journey through life, but with their own challenges, like many people have. And they, my childhood was one where my mum and dad tried to provide for me, give me everything I needed. And things probably changed a little bit when I was about maybe 7 years old. And my dad had encountered quite a severe mental health difficulty, and he had changing job, a bit more pressure. There was maybe some other things going on in his life at the time as well that were a bit unresolved, unprocessed, and maybe were occupying his mind space. And obviously I was too young to know what was really going on at that time. But the next thing I knew is I think I can't remember, I was 7 or 8, but anyway, we got, my sister and I were taken out of school because there had been some kind of incident or situation that we didn't really know exactly at the time. But my grandma came and picked us up, took us back to the house. I remember it quite vividly, and just this gut feeling that something not nice had happened. And yeah, my dad had a real he had a real moment where he'd had enough, and he'd tried to check out, and he was found and was taken into hospital, and he was severely unwell, and he spent a long time in psychiatric hospital, where we would go in to visit him, and that was one of the things that in my adult life I had to really go back and unpick, and I had to go back to that traumatic time, because one minute you've got your father there and everything seems reasonably okay in the house. Next minute he's gone, he's not there. We don't know when he's coming back, if he's ever going to come back. We don't know if he was unable to communicate. He'd lost the powers of being able to communicate through the severity of his episode that he was having, and he therefore wasn't able to show any kind of real emotion or love when we were going to see him. So as a child, that feeling from the parent had changed. So I think in my developing child brain, I had made up some kind of idea that he didn't love me anymore, or he was he was just a different person. So
it's quite a shock, isn't it? Just that.
Yeah, major shock for a child, and you know, my mum tried to normalise everything as much as she could. You know, she tried to kept on. You know, she would take us for food before we went in to see my dad in the evenings, like our dinner. We would go and get like a baked potato and stuff, and trying to make it sort of like a little bit of kind of little bit of kind of, you know, something to look forward to almost. But what we didn't really get the opportunity to do as a family, which we now know as adults wasn't the right thing to do, was we didn't really get the opportunity to express how we felt about what was going on. So, because my mum just wanted things to be just normal for us. So she was like, oh, everything's fine, you know, your dad will, you know, get out at some point and all that kind of stuff. So, and she,
there was no space to almost process it. And I imagine you're almost trying to protect your mother as well in your own childish way to kind of go, well, you know, something's gone wrong. You said you felt a gut instinct thing, and you must have sensed tension or small changes in your mom as well, as she tried very hard to keep things normal. I don't know, did it grow you up quite early in a way?
Very much so, very much so. Life became quite serious at that point, and I was quite a jovial child, quite a sort of cheeky, sort of humoured kid, and I changed at that point, and exactly what you said. Things became more serious. I took myself more seriously, I guess, as well. Started to take myself a bit too seriously. I had become a bit cold to emotions, because to protect myself from getting hurt, I'd put the body armor up basically, and I didn't really realize this is what was happening at the time because I was too young. But I now know, because I've been able to go back and unpick it all and see the trajectory about what that did to me as I moved into my teenage years, and then what it did to me when I moved into becoming an adult.
Yeah, because when you're saying you looked at this, like, how long ago was that? Like, this is in your adult life, right?
Oh yeah, this took me until I was in my mid to late 30s to start unpicking this, because I was getting signs that experiences were repeating over and over. Relationships were kind of, you know, maybe go into relationships for, you know, maybe 2 years, 3 years, 4 years sometimes, and then they would get to a point where they couldn't go any further.
Why do you think that was?
I was emotionally unavailable at times. I was emotionally cold at some sort of deeper root of my being, and it was preventing open dialogue and really a deep connection with the other person, talking in a really sort of deep way that we absolutely need in order to have a very close and meaningful relationship. We have to get deeper with the language that we speak. And I was always just happy just to keep going without planning, without, you know, I just wanted to do fun stuff, go traveling, go holidays, go to festivals, do all these things, and then didn't really want to be didn't want to commit.
Yeah.
Because at some level I didn't trust myself.
Yeah.
And I was still, still quite ego, still quite, in tune with the ego in terms of the way I was handling situations. And I was also, my psychology wasn't helpful in terms of how I was interpreting situations, and also some self-limiting beliefs that had been established from those younger years about myself. I didn't have a good self-image, despite the fact to a lot of other people I maybe came across as quite a confident guy, so there was a lot of deeper rooted stuff that needed to be addressed.
Yeah, so I'm hearing that you hadn't learned the emotional language necessary to unpick this. It's almost like you got a bit stunted, and the message was, we don't talk about this stuff. And then you internalize that your dad doesn't love you. Like, you probably didn't have those words in your head, but the feeling, right?
Feeling was there, yeah.
I really want to connect for people, because I've been experiencing something similar, is the repeat pattern in relationships, where we think we're emotionally intelligent even, and we're confident, and we have all these sort of things that we can do, right?
Yeah.
But then it's the being with, to connect to the mindfulness, but connected with intimacy, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Relationship means we need to be able to sit with our own stuff and allow someone else to see some of that over time, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Interested in what you said. You said, did you say I was scared of myself, or I was worried of what I would do, like something there? What was that?
I didn't trust myself.
Trust yourself, right?
Yeah.
So you didn't trust yourself to do what, or to be what?
I didn't trust myself to. I didn't trust myself to be able to give the other person what I thought that they wanted or needed. And therefore this came back again full circle to the lack of self-worth and self-belief, and how I valued myself at some level. So it was a subconscious thing, and how that subconscious program, I mean, I could look at the pattern coming down through the ancestry, through my dad, looking at parts of mum and dad that I had in me, then reflecting on my grandparents and trying to remember what did I see in them. And I could see patterns just coming down the generation. And I kind of, got this real sense that obviously I needed to change. I needed to take some action. And it was almost like it wasn't something I kind of planned and said, okay, I'm going to do all this bunch of stuff, and I'm going to go and get some Reiki. I'm going to start meditating. I'm going to find mindfulness. It's going to start to transform my life, and I'm going to start understanding myself more fully. And I didn't do like that. I was almost subliminally guided towards all these different things. It was almost like all these little doors were opening. I was meeting people that were saying, oh, you should try this, you should try that. And then the journey was unfolding. And the more I explored myself more fully, the more I took what you would regard more as a spiritual path of kind of self-connection, and it's been the most important and worthwhile thing that I've ever done.
Amazing. And I love that you're saying it wasn't this like, oh, let me sit down and map out a plan of how I'm going to transform my life because I'm a bit fed up over here. It's never like that from my experience and the conversations that I have with people. It's you get fed up enough with the pattern repeating. Shit, I've had another breakup, or my kids aren't talking to me, or my relationships are falling apart, or I've lost a job. Like, shit, this can't keep happening, right? And some people don't, and it's very sad. But for some of us, it's like, well, I have to shift something, but I don't know what to do. So practicing curiosity or openness or desperation, maybe, that they're like, I have to find another way. And it kind of gives you this like, fuck it thing. Let me just put myself in this situation that I would have never thought I would have done before.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think many of us have to reach rock bottom or close to it before we actually then start to say, right, I need to do something different here. It's time for me to change. And all these kind of egos that are running through us that we identify with, the self, and all this kind of, these feelings that we have about ourselves, the feelings we have and beliefs we have about the world, and how it's not fair, and the kind of self-pitying and
Someone else's fault.
yeah, it's somebody else's fault, all this shit's happened to me, and the self-sabotaging that goes on through that process. I was a major self-sabotager, particularly in relationships, and it was through probably the most conscious relationship I've ever had, and the love of my partner, and the wisdom of my partner, who was able to help me to undo all the shit that had been built up over the years. Because I made an unconscious decision to take the harder route to realizing who I am and what I'm here to try and do in this life. I took the harder route because I turned my back on love and kindness and compassion for myself and for other people, and I took the harder, tougher, more angrier route. And through my teenage years, when the opportunity to let loose came, just to give me some relief, I was all in, and I went full in for the rave scene kicked in the early 90s, and I was all over it.
You were fucked
So
up, Gary.
I got involved in the nonsense.
Yeah.
And
Is that what we're calling it?
The nonsense, yeah, that's what we'll call it. And really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But also it was masking some stuff, and sometimes through over exuberance, overindulging, anger would rise to the surface sometimes. Or so I'd kind of created some kind of identity, probably just through self-protection, that on the outside, to the outside world, I was going to be have a sort of tougher exterior, but I was masking really who the real me was on the inside. Actually, it was quite a caring, considerate, gentle person, a loving person, but all that stuff was buried very deep.
You've also got to fit in, right? You're as a young man, and the masculinity role models, and like tough
absolutely
enough, on top of all the sort of pain that you'd experienced, that you almost don't know what else to do. And it doesn't sound like your dad was able to step in and be that role model when he was ill, and so you're just like, I've got to figure it out and fit in. You mentioned rock bottoms, and I'm hearing about your wild teenage years. What sort of comes to mind when you think of the points in your experience that led you to going, I've got to do something?
So this was the depression that kicked in for me, and I had left my 23-year career in corporate, where I was finished up as I was a project and program manager working on some pretty large, complex changes within the retail banking sector. I was a contractor. I was self-employed, contracting myself back to the organisations where I used to work as a permanent employee before I quit the job in 2010. And so I'd made the transition out and said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to follow my passion. Mindfulness and meditation and the consistency I'd built up with that had really started to change me in very positive ways. There was still a lot of work to be done, but it was changing me in really positive ways. And I felt ready to throw myself into something new and demanding. But as I made that transition, I felt a lot of heavy thoughts coming through my mind that I was seduced by. And even though I was still doing some practice of mindfulness and I was still managing to do that, I found at points it was quite overwhelming, the strength of these thoughts that were coming through. And what I've correlated this with is the same difficulty that my father got into when he ended up in hospital. and he ended up getting to the point where he'd had enough of his life. And I started to have those same thoughts and same feelings at a very similar age that my dad was, strikingly similar circumstances, just a different flavour. And it was basically just the universe saying, are you going to go the same direction that your dad went in, or are you going to find another way? But the difference between his situation and my situation was I had the tools that he didn't have to support me through that journey, because everything nowadays is so out there in terms of information. And if you choose to invest in yourself, in the right things, you can heal from anything you want. You can recover from any bouts of any depression or whatever it might be, and you can create a life for yourself where you are, where you're in a feeling of joy more often than you are anything else. But I couldn't even feel. I mean, I'd lost the ability to feel. Like when I was thinking, I'd become cold towards my feelings, just as a male, and all the stuff that I've talked about already about my sort of journey. I mean, I was involved in some aggressive situations in my teenage years and into my early 20s. Some physical confrontation. I was beat up quite badly because at one point, just through just being an arse basically. But I was looking for it, and I was because of that was the vibration I was sending out, this kind of toughness or this anger that I had going through me. That's the situations that I was attracting.
But it's almost like self-harming behavior, because
it is.
Isn't it? Because you're saying I couldn't feel, I'm numb, but on the inside I'm like screaming. And it looks, when you get beat up, you feel something for this little bit of time, right?
Yeah.
Feel alive, like you're human, in this real kind of warped, self-harming way. That's what I'm hearing, and it's so painful to hear the similarity between you and your dad.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so many men don't figure out how to change the rule book and do something different.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was kind of very much, this was a dangerous journey I was on through this lack of feeling. And even like I was thinking about in situations of maybe where I was saying I love someone, it was coming very much from a it was more of a kind of cerebral thing than it was, it wasn't heart, because the heart was so covered up and distant. So that kind of, even to the point where I got one of the worst kind of the times I got beat up quite badly. I was at a nightclub one time, and the very next day, this is how kind of cold I was to myself and what had happened. I just got up out my bed the next day after having been in hospital, stitches above my head, all that. My head was swollen, all that sort of stuff. And I just went. I played football. I still went. I didn't play that day, but I did play football throughout my life as a young boy, right up to the age of about 35 before I finished up. And I still, although I couldn't play because of my injuries, I still just turned up and went to my team's football game the next day. Just turned up. It was like, oh yeah, I've had a bit of a near brush with possible death, and I'm just going to turn up here and carry on as everything's normal.
But that sounds like your mum.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how you've made that connection there to just keeping on going and just keep trying to keep things being normal. Yeah, just keep going. Don't take time to sit with the feeling of what's happened. It's keep going. That's your brain
again. Oh my God, yeah.
Absolutely.
And then as we started this conversation, it was about this sitting with. And so this learning to be that you sound better at than I am. How the hell what's the little middle bit between like, shit, I'm having some of these thoughts. So you're starting to recognize how dark it is, and you have these choices, right?
Yeah.
Being the guy that you are now. who's got
That's right.
mindfulness practice, who teaches this stuff, who lives this stuff? Like, how do you get from that bit to that bit?
Yeah. So just the journey, first of all, had to get very messy for me in terms of the depression. I had, when I could feel these really strong feelings coming in, really a lot of darkness, struggling to get out of my bed in the morning, but trying to create a business. So I had to get up and get on with stuff, and I had to push through, just put a brave face on it, but I was feeling like shit inside. But the awareness that had started to emerge for me through the mindfulness practice, I had the awareness of what was going on, but I needed the time to sit with it, to be in it, until I got to the point where I said, that's enough. I've experienced this. I've had enough of it. I understand what's happening chemically within my body when I sit with this feeling and identify with these thoughts. I know what it's doing. I know that it's creating, the body's craving that every day, wants to pull me back into those familiar chemicals from the past thoughts. And so I eventually had a moment of clarity around the dinner table, where my son said something to me that was expressing how I was feeling, where he was only 11 or 12 at the time, and he said some words to me that I'll never forget. And it pretty much was to the effect of, he wasn't enjoying his life at that time. And it hit me like that. And I was like, right. So this pattern is something that's coming down through the generations. And if I don't stop it, then he's going to be the next one that's going to get it. So I had this moment of clarity, and I actually put a fist on the dinner table. I said, okay, this is where it stops. It's me that's going to do the work for this, because I've got the tools. I'm a Taurus. I'm a bit of a stubborn person because of that. And for me, I was given these characteristics to help me to be the one to break the cycle. So I had that awareness that came through, you have to do it. And I then committed myself, with the support of my incredible partner, to day after day, to check in with myself. How am I? How am I feeling? What do I need to do today that takes me beyond this feeling? And it was about, enough is enough with the self-pitying feelings that I was having. And that's no disrespect to anybody out there who has suffered bouts of depression, but it is quite a self-pitying thing. And I had decided that I was no longer going to be that person, no longer identifying with it, no longer going to be the guy who is, who's going to go in a kind of downward cycle and create misery for other people around him. So I just felt I was ready to take responsibility. And not everybody is ready to do that. You have to just be kind to yourself along that journey. Don't judge yourself and and beat yourself up for feeling the way you do, but know that there is a point in time on that journey that you will become ready to say, that's it, I'm done with it. And that was it for me. And from that point onwards, I got more consistently into my meditation practice. I started to resist less and accept more of what was going on, allow it to be there, and then I would make a very important changes in my point of attraction in terms of what I was focusing on. So rather than focusing on the kind of isness of what was at the time, I was focusing on the vision of where I was trying to take my life, the vision of where I was trying to take the business, and the impact that could have. And that was the thing that, when I changed that, point of attraction, and tried to then become grateful for smaller things, or all these things that I had in my life, when I reflected and managed to step back out of that kind of, depressed state, it was like, look at all this stuff that you've got, look at the life you've got, and look at all these other people who have got an actually quite a dreadful life. So right now, you change the point of focus, and the gratitude, and appreciating everything that I had, people around about me, and the opportunity that I had to try and create some change in the world with the business idea that I had. That's where I had to focus, and to see my son, to be able to see my son grow and feel happy and content in himself was something that I wanted to see. And I didn't.
Start having emotional conversations. I mean, emotionally intelligent, or space for emotions with your son, like those types of conversations.
Absolutely. Really much more open and warm conversations where we were allowing him to express how he was feeling. We had some amazing discussions round the table where he was able to just open up about stuff, and we could see that the change that was in me was mirrored in him. So as I was healing from this and growing from this, he was starting to speak in a different language. He was starting to change his point of focus, and it was amazing to see the change. It was just, it was completely in parallel.
Mm-hmm. And what I love is, the taking responsibility piece is about leading by example, which works in businesses as well, which is what I talk to people about. When we lead by example, start with you, rather than you should use emotional language, look after your well-being, do all these things. But if we're not living, people can see through that, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you're one of those people who absolutely lives it. And it's so beautiful to understand. And I mean, it's part of my journey as well, which is why I'm a bit like, whoo, I'm also overtired, but I'm like, oh my God, Gary. My son's 15, and, I have addiction in my history. And, some of the conversations that I've had to have is like, how do I break the cycle of abuse and addiction? And because it's a similar thing, you were using violence and drugs and whatever, but it's running away, right? It's numbing it in a different way. And when we see the pain in our children, we can either tell them off and resent them and be like, be different, make my life easier in order to, kind of enhance this self-pitying thinking, or we can fucking stand up and take responsibility.
Yeah,
That's what I see so beautifully in your story.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's thanks for sharing what you have there, just that insight into your own journey as well, because I can feel it from you right now that we've got there's a lot of common ground here, and this feeling of lack that we have within us, the thing that maybe takes us towards some kind of addictive things that we do, and what is that? Just trying to explore that more fully. What is this kind of childhood trauma or this perceived lack that we have that's keeping us in this cycle? And then when we change and shift from lack to more abundant thinking, then that's what we can attract more of. And when we focus on lack, we attract lack. We focus on abundance, we attract abundance. And
but also it's subtle. So we're kind of making it out that everything's sorted now and we know everything, right? And I just want to highlight that stuff, like, sometimes we figure it out and it helps our relationship with our kids, and then it has a curveball and it comes out in a different relationship. Or I've just recently started dating someone and I'm like, damn, I thought I figured this out. But like the intimacy thing, when it's so genuine and connected, is scary. In my mind, I'm like, everybody leaves. You keep yourself safe. Nobody else will. Like that, like I've got this loop in my head. But the beautiful thing is being able to express it and go, oh, my body is saying this to me right now, even though I'm really enjoying your company and I really want to do this, but it's like something stops me. So being able to sit with and work with that is so profound. And so I just want to highlight that the journey continues, right?
It absolutely continues. There's no, they're not sitting here, the work is done, it's an ongoing piece. And that when you overcome and really, learn a big lesson and you move beyond it, there's another one coming around the corner, because, it's all trying to take us to our highest it's to taking us to our highest growth, isn't it? So it's all for our highest growth and everything. This is where people get into difficulty, I think, because they resist the experiences that they're having in life. It causes struggle, and the struggle takes people under the water sometimes, rather than seeing everything that we're experiencing as an opportunity to grow and something to learn from. We have to see it as that.
Yeah, so it's how we frame it is different. And that makes the journey kind of exciting. Like, I'm like, oh, look at this. I can handle this next thing.
Absolutely.
And look at the richness if I can just sit with it that's around the corner as far as intimacy, closeness, and the things that I can learn, right? And so because the frame is different and it's not like the world is attacking me and everyone's against me and, oh, woe be me.
Absolutely.
That's the difference. But
that is the difference.
Comes, right?
Yeah, the stuff still comes. And I think for me, the key thing that I've learned in relationships is that there's a lot of people out there that really want a really loving and connected relationship. And in order for us to get that, I think we have to work on ourselves first to make sure that what we're attracting by way of a relationship is coming from, we're in the right vibration for it, basically. So if we are trying to find a relationship so that we can get the love from another that we don't feel in ourselves, then that maybe isn't going to go very well. If we do the work inside to become more stable and balanced emotionally, and how we feel about ourselves, self-worth, etc., then we're going into an environment where what we attract is maybe going to be somebody who might be more of a like partner, where somebody maybe is also looking for the same things we're looking for. So we have to change ourselves in order to attract the things that we really want. And if we feel that things are keeping happening on a cycle, but we're not actually doing any work to evolve and grow ourselves as we come out of one difficult experience, we're just going to potentially get another difficult one that comes on the back of it. So,
and not to be harsh, but it's your fault. Like,
absolutely.
The same cycle, and it keeps being like there's something going on with you. Stop and take notice. Go to therapy, go to Reiki, like go to some outside source that can help shift your mindset, your energy, your vibration, as you put it, to test different things. Like even if the first one doesn't work, it's a step, right? It's to test these different things in order to put yourself out there. Gary, we're almost at our time, but oh my God, we could talk.
Goodness.
We could talk
I think we could. I think we maybe need to get another call organised.
Maybe part two.
We do. Maybe not even a Zoom. Just or maybe it is a Zoom.
Let's hang out. We'll have to hang out.
We will.
What are your top three? Because I know there's probably loads of different ones, but let's say, what are your top 1 to 3 kind of habits that you try and like almost they're your non-negotiables that you try and incorporate them in order to sustain that, like how you're framing things and how you look after yourself? Top 3.
Yeah, top 3. Mindfulness, as we know, is an absolute non-negotiable for me, because the awareness that comes on the back of our deepening of our practice is the thing that facilitates our personal growth and our self-growth, to get ourselves to this place where we can become more fulfilled in life. And obviously living life in the present moment is where the joy is, and more people need to consider turning to that. So that's one. Exercise for me is essential, and if possible, exercising in nature. I'm quite drawn to mountains and a snowboard. Although I don't get the chance to do it all year round, it's something that brings joy into my life. So that, again, exercise is a real fundamental for me, moving my body and getting the feel-good feelings after I've done it. And the other one I would say is, the third one, there's a few here jockeying for position, but I would say giving to other people, and trying to share your skills and talents with other people in a way that allows them to be inspired. I think that for me is a really important one, and because I would feel a bit of a gap in my life if I didn't feel that I was able to support others in some kind of a way to help them to thrive. And it's not an ego mission for me. It's actually a very humble mission for me, that I have gone on my own journey, and I feel like I want to be able to be the best I can be so that I can be of service to other people. I don't want anything. Gary Young doesn't want anything out of this as an individual. I don't want attention, but I want the work that I'm doing to get attention. So I know that I'm the face of the business, and therefore I have to be in the public eye when I'm being my business. But it's very much about helping to show people a path that they can find their own joy in. So that to me is very meaningful.
I love those. They're very kind of connected within the 5 ways to well-being, right? That giving back. Before I ask my last question, where can people find you? Where can they find the Mindful Enterprise and Gary Young?
Yeah, so they can find me on LinkedIn as Gary Young. I try and stay reasonably active on there. They can find me through the Mindful Enterprise. We've got a website, www.themindfulenterprise.org. The website needs a bit of work, but probably we're more active on our Facebook page and Instagram. So again, if they look up the Mindful Enterprise, they will find us in Facebook, and there'll be our email address will be on the sites and stuff like that, so that people can connect with us if they want to.
Perfect. We'll add all of that into the show notes so people can find you easily. Finally, do you think that we needed, is that the right word? That we needed our rock bottoms and our, all the shit that's gone on in our lives in order to make us into the people that we are today, that can give back and have healthy relationships and give to our children? Like, did we need that, or could we have figured it out without it?
Yeah, I think we need to make a shitload of mistakes to get to the point where we can rise from that and really become the greatest expression of ourselves on a deeper level, So not the perceived person that we think we are, the kind of role identities we give ourselves. It's the inner us, when we start to connect more deeply with that. That's when we can become self-realized, I think. So that's the journey in my opinion, and I'm committed to it.
I love that so much. We've got to chip away, right? And that's the life process that allows us to build our full potential and connect deeply with others. Gary, I was worried at the beginning of this podcast because I'm exhausted and I just got back from a festival, but you did do the work, and it made me do the work, and it was amazing. Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom.
Thank you for having me.